Hey everyone, ready to dive deep into the world of Blade 2? Released on March 22, 2002, this film has sparked endless discussions, and today, we're uncovering every thrilling detail. If you enjoy this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps us grow. And for more incredible movie explorations and hidden gems, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's unravel the magic behind this cinematic masterpiece. The story kicks off with Blade, our stoic half-vampire, half-human hunter, searching for his old friend and mentor Whistler, who was believed to be dead in the first film. Turns out, Whistler was turned into a vampire and kept alive. Blade rescues him, cures him, and the two are back in business, just in time for a much bigger threat. Enter the Reapers, a terrifying new breed of vampire mutation, with a hunger so intense they prey on both humans and vampires alike. These things aren't elegant or calculated like regular vampires. They're feral, unstoppable, and nearly impossible to kill. Their design, with a split-jawed mouth and twitching movements, feels more like something out of a nightmare than a comic book, which makes sense when you realize Guillermo del Toro directed this one. Del Toro's fingerprints are all over the film. The tone is darker, the monsters feel alive, and the environments, from sewers to ancient vampire lairs, drip with eerie, mythic detail. It's a horror film wearing a superhero movie's clothes, and it fits beautifully. The visual contrast between the high-tech vampire world and the grimy underworld of the Reapers is striking. Every set feels like it has a story to tell. Blade is pulled into a reluctant alliance with the Blood Pack, a team of elite vampire warriors originally trained to hunt him. Naturally, they don't trust each other, and the tension is thick from the start. Ron Perlman plays Reinhardt, the loudest voice of distrust, constantly needling Blade, testing him, and setting up some of the film's most charged moments. Nyssa, played by Leonor Varela, adds complexity as a vampire who doesn't fully align with her kind's cruelty and begins to question everything she's been taught. But the real wildcard is Nomak. He's the first Reaper, created through a twisted experiment by the vampire overlord Damaskinos. Nomak isn't just a monster, he's a victim. He's the son of Damaskinos, betrayed and used as a lab rat, and now he's leading a rebellion against his own creators. There's a tragic edge to him, a sense of purpose behind the carnage. It's rare for a villain to evoke sympathy in a film like this, but Luke Goss pulls it off with a performance that's equal parts rage and restraint. The action in Blade 2 takes everything from the first film and cranks it higher. There's a fluid mix of practical stunts, wire work, and CGI. Some effects are a bit dated by today's standards, especially in close-quarters CG fight scenes, but the choreography still holds up. One standout is Blade's fight with the Blood Pack in the Vampire Club, a chaotic brawl that's both brutal and precise. Every move has weight, every punch feels earned. As the story unfolds, betrayals start to surface. The Vampire Council never really wanted a partnership. Blade was just a tool to get rid of the Reaper threat. Damaskinos has his own agenda, and even Whistler starts questioning whether they're on the right side of this battle. It's not just about who's fighting whom, it's about survival, manipulation, and control. The third act delivers on everything the build-up promised. The final showdown between Blade and Nomak is fierce and emotional. Nomak isn't just a monster for Blade to kill, he's a mirror. Both are weapons created by men in power. Both are caught between worlds. That's what makes their fight more than just a cool action sequence. It's a statement about identity and what it means to have your fate decided for you. By the end, Blade stands victorious but scarred. Nyssa chooses to die under the sunrise rather than return to her father's corrupt world. Blade grants her that mercy. It's a quiet, somber ending that lingers, reminding us this isn't a feel-good hero's journey. It's a war between predators, and Blade is the last line of defense keeping it from spilling over into our world. Blade 2 isn't just a sequel. It's a rare case where a second film refines and elevates everything that worked in the first. The action is sharper, the characters deeper, and the atmosphere unforgettable. Guillermo del Toro turned a comic book property into something gothic, violent, and emotionally grounded. It's not just a vampire movie. It's a story about control, loyalty, and the cost of being different. Thanks for joining this deep dive. If you love this breakdown, hit that like button and drop a comment with your favorite moment from Blade 2, or let us know which movie you want us to explore next. Don't forget to subscribe for more rich, story-driven content. Until next time, stay sharp. On March 22, 2002, a film hit theaters that didn't just continue a story, it redefined what a sequel could be. Blade 2 wasn't just another comic book adaptation riding the wave of early 2000s superhero cinema. It was a bold fusion of genres, brought to life by a director who saw monsters not as mere villains, but as reflections of the worlds that create them. With Guillermo del Toro at the helm and Wesley Snipes sharpening his katana once again, Blade 2 emerged as a genre-blending masterpiece that pushed the boundaries of action, horror, and superhero storytelling in one savage, stylish strike. What makes Blade 2 extraordinary is its willingness to evolve. The first Blade, released in 1998, laid the groundwork. It introduced audiences to the Daywalker, a half-human, half-vampire hunter living between worlds, fighting to rid the planet of a species he could never truly escape. But where the first film leaned more on atmosphere and martial arts spectacle, Blade 2 dives deeper. It expands the mythology. It builds a layered, oppressive world where alliances are fragile, and enemies were familiar faces. The action hits harder. The horror is more grotesque, and the moral lines blur in ways that elevate this from popcorn entertainment to something far more visceral and lasting. Right from the opening scene, there's a noticeable shift in tone. The camera glides through a blood bank in Prague, dimly lit and sterile. A pale, sickly figure stumbles in, gaunt and hollow-eyed, setting the stage for something new, something other. When he reveals his purpose and his monstrous nature, we're thrust headfirst into the world of the Reapers. Unlike the sleek vampires of the first film, the Reapers are predators of predators, a terrifying mutation that doesn't just feed, it consumes everything. They are faster, stronger, and biologically unstoppable, with a jaw that splits open to reveal a leech-like maw. It's grotesque and brilliant, the kind of design that only Del Toro could pull off, marrying biology with nightmare. From that moment on, the stakes are raised. Blade, who's been searching for his mentor Whistler since the events of the first movie, tracks him to Eastern Europe. Whistler, long thought dead, has been turned into a vampire, kept alive in a kind of undead stasis. Blade finds him, cures him, and pulls him back into the war just as a new enemy makes itself known. But this time, Blade isn't just hunting vampires, he's joining them. The Vampire Nation, faced with extinction by the Reaper virus, comes to Blade with an offer he can't refuse. They propose a temporary truce. A team of elite vampire warriors, known as the Blood Pack, was originally assembled to kill Blade. Now, they're assigned to fight alongside him against the Reaper threat. This uneasy alliance sets the tone for the entire film. Mistrust, grudges, and survival all clashing under one fragile banner. What unfolds is a brutal, stylish war. Blade stands at the center, navigating treacherous allegiances and hidden agendas while trying to stay one step ahead of both the Reapers and the vampires who would gladly stab him in the back once their problem is solved. The Blood Pack themselves are a colorful, dangerous bunch, each with unique weapons, fighting styles, and personalities. Most notably, Ron Perlman's Reinhardt, a muscle-bound brute with a chip on his shoulder and a constant stream of sarcastic venom aimed at Blade. Their rivalry is tense, often hilarious, and loaded with moments that explode into violence without warning. Leonor Varela brings a striking, conflicted energy as Nyssa, daughter of vampire overlord Damaskinos, and one of the few characters in the film whose loyalty isn't entirely clear. She respects Blade, admires his strength and discipline, but is deeply tied to the vampire cause. Through her, the film explores themes of identity, loyalty, and the cost of bloodlines. Her quiet defiance of her father's cruelty sets the stage for one of the film's most emotional turns. But the real center of the film's horror is Jared Nomak. Played with a tragic fury by Luke Goss, Nomak is the first Reaper, the prototype of a biological weapon designed by Damaskinos to make vampires even stronger. Instead, it made something uncontrollable. Nomak is a monster, yes, but he's a broken one. A creation turned against his creator. His pain isn't just physical, it's existential. He's been abandoned, feared, and hunted by the very people who built him. In another version of the story, he could have been the hero. His vendetta is rooted in betrayal, and his intelligence gives him depth most villains never reach. He is the shadow of Blade's own story, a twisted mirror that forces Blade to question the lines between hunter and hunted, justice and vengeance. The action in Blade 2 is relentless but never mindless. Del Toro brings an elegance to the chaos, crafting set pieces that balance fluid choreography with raw brutality. Whether it's a sword fight in a vampire nightclub or a blood-soaked brawl in an underground hive, every moment feels charged with purpose. The use of practical effects, makeup, and stunt work grounds the more fantastical elements. Even the CGI, though a bit dated in a few key scenes, is used creatively enough that it enhances rather than distracts. Blade's combat style, a mix of martial arts, tactical strikes, and brutal efficiency, reflects his inner character, precise, controlled, and deadly. Visually, the film is drenched in gothic texture. Shadows loom over every frame. The vampire world is a mix of ancient architecture and cold technology, creating an eerie blend of past and future. The Reapers, with their sinewy bodies and horrifying mouths, feel organic and alien. The entire aesthetic is unmistakably Del Toro, a director who never shies away from the grotesque, but always finds beauty in it. That visual richness adds a layer of immersion that pulls viewers into a world that feels both mythic and lived in. As the plot unravels, betrayals begin to surface. Damaskinos never wanted a cure. He wanted control. The alliance was a lie. The Blood Pack was never united. And Blade, as always, is forced to fight alone. The climax is devastating and personal. The final confrontation between Blade and Nomak is more than just a fight. It's a battle between two beings shaped by pain, betrayal, and isolation. Both are weapons. Both are victims. But only one of them still has a choice. Nomak's death is not triumphant. It's tragic. He chooses it. After a brutal duel, he forces Blade's sword into his chest, finally ending a life he never asked for. The moment is quiet, almost sacred. There's no explosion, no fanfare. Just silence and consequence. Nissa's ending is equally haunting. Fatally wounded, she asks Blade to let her see the sunrise one last time. He honors her wish, carrying her to the rooftop and holding her as the light takes her. It's a moment of peace in a film filled with violence. It's also a rare admission of vulnerability from Blade, who, despite everything, feels the weight of every loss. Blade 2 became a cultural phenomenon not just because it was a great action film, but because it defied expectations. It took the bones of a comic book story and fleshed them out with mythology, emotion, and horror. It didn't treat its subject lightly. It didn't pander. It respected the intelligence of its audience and delivered something that felt fresh and dangerous at a time when superhero films were just beginning to find their footing. It also solidified Wesley Snipes as a true action icon. His performance here is lean, focused, and quietly powerful. He doesn't need monologues to get his point across. Every glance, every movement, every blade swing speaks for him. This is a man who walks alone, but who carries the weight of two worlds on his shoulders. Snipes' physicality and presence are unmatched, and he makes Blade not just cool, but real. Beyond the action and the aesthetics, Blade 2 tapped into deeper themes: biological control, the ethics of science, the question of identity, and the thin line between survival and cruelty. It was ahead of its time in exploring these ideas through genre filmmaking. It asked, what happens when the monsters you create turn on you? What happens when the hero becomes the last person you can trust? For fans of horror, it delivered creatures worthy of nightmares. For action lovers, it served up some of the best fight scenes of the early 2000s. And for those looking for story, it gave us characters with scars, both physical and emotional, who made choices that hurt and lived with the consequences. It didn't ask to be liked. It demanded respect. That's why Blade 2 still holds up. It wasn't trying to be a blockbuster, it was trying to be bold. And in doing so, it carved a place in cinema that remains untouched. It's the kind of film that rewards repeat viewings, where each frame, each line, each moment carries more weight once you know the full story. So if you've never seen it, or haven't watched it in years, now is the perfect time to dive back in and experience one of the most unforgettable entries in modern genre cinema. On March 22, 2002, the world welcomed Blade 2, and it hit the ground running. 2 years after the events of the first film, Blade prowls Prague with eyes locked on one mission: find Abraham Whistler. His mentor was presumed dead, but whispers say otherwise. Night falls, vampires stalk and Blade tracks. An underground fight in a hideout erupts. Ninja-like attackers flip through rafters and Blade moves through them like water. Precise, lethal, unstoppable. Sweeping the floor clean, one vampire named Rush is left alive. Blade interrogates him, learns Whistler is alive, and dives deeper into the darkness. He infiltrates a vampire safe house, finds Whistler kept alive in a tank, floating and broken. The rescue is tense and sharp, Blade's anger and urgency barely contained. He retrieves Whistler, whips out a serum, injects him, and watches life return to his old mentor's eyes. Scud, young, brash, a stoner mechanic, is introduced as Whistler's replacement. When Whistler was gone, Scud filled the gearmaker seat. He cracks jokes, but Blade tolerates it. Whistler coughs, stands, and the old war resumes. But it isn't just vampires anymore. A new threat emerges, a virus born in a vampire named Jared Nomak. This mutation creates something even vampires fear. These creatures, called Reapers, kill indiscriminately. They bite both humans and vampires, transforming victims into identical monsters. They are immune to silver, resistant to injuries, except for one lethal weakness: sunlight. Their jaws split open like nightmares. Their hunger never ends. They are creating an apocalypse. Vampire overlord Eli Damaskinos realizes if these Reapers aren't stopped, humans will be next. He deploys his daughter Nissa and his lieutenant Assad to find Blade. He offers a fragile alliance. Blade is hesitant. He doesn't trust vampires. But he understands if Reapers take over, humanity is doomed. He reluctantly agrees. The atmosphere cracks. Blade, the vampire hunter, will lead a team of vampires originally trained to kill him. He loads a tracker into Reinhardt's skullcap, a giant of a man with a chip on his shoulder, explosive in case of betrayal. This team, the Blood Pack, is a motley crew. Reinhardt, Chupa, Snowman, Priest, Verlaine and her lover Lighthammer, Assad and Nissa. They breathe violence and relish Blade's presence as the enemy. Blade attaches the explosive device to Reinhardt's skull to keep control. Their relationship is tense, loud, full of insults. Blade remains ice-cold calm. Their first mission: infiltrate House of Pain, a vampire nightclub. Amid neon chaos and violence, they discover their weapons, silver, garlic, bullets, do nothing to Reapers. They ambush them, learn nearly nothing harms them. Priest is bitten. He transforms mid-fight and collapses under sunlight when exposed. Blade steps in with mercy. Brutal decisions are made quickly. Lighthammer is bitten too but hides it. Snowman fights valiantly but is overwhelmed. Scud is attacked in transport, but improvises UV lights to save himself. Whistler disappears mid-scamper, abandoning his sniper post. Blade squares off against Nomak. Immensely strong, able to heal instantly, completely unaffected by Blade's anticoagulant spikes. Their exchange is fierce and rhythmic, balanced by control and brute force. The fight ends when sunlight breaks through a window, burning Nomak. He retreats without a word. There's a mutual recognition. Only one of them walks out. Whistler returns later carrying news. He tracked a lone Reaper and uncovered a nest beneath the city's sewer system. Nissa examines a dead Reaper's anatomy and confirms their hearts are encased in bone, only vulnerable from one angle. They burn out without feeding for hours. Whistler and Scud produce new ultraviolet devices, projectors, grenades, to weaponize this weakness. Blade breathes understanding into the plan. He senses the stakes rising. They descend into the sewers at dawn, methodical and tense, into a nest brimming with bodies. Lighthammer, infected, transforms and rampages. He murders Snowman, chases Verlaine up a manhole ladder. She releases them both into sunlight, an explosion of ash and regret. Chupa snaps and blames Whistler, attacks him, and is devoured by reapers lured by pheromones. Whistler secretly released. Assad and Nissa are ambushed. Assad is dragged underwater and killed. Blade saves Nissa, detonates the UV bomb, and immolates most reapers. Nomak alone escapes. Nissa is hurt badly. Blade presses his hand over her wound, letting her drink his blood. She revives, eyes wild. Blade's mercy saves her. They make it out, but tension is thick. Alliances fray. Trust feels brittle. They return broken, battered. Blade, Nissa and Reinhardt are alive. Everyone else dead or missing. Blade feels the gulf between him and his allies widening. The virus nest was destroyed, but this feels like only the beginning. Nomak's escape hovers like a shadow. Nissa's loyalty flickers. Whistler's silence is uneasy. Blade knows he's deeper in this war than he ever wanted. The first half of Blade 2 is a fierce introduction to a new breed of enemy, fragile alliances, and desperate survival in a world between daylight and blood. And at the center stands Blade. Alone, unstoppable, hunted, and more necessary than ever. On March 22, 2002, Blade 2 roared into theaters, and it wasted no time kicking into high gear. We open in Prague, where the moonlight glints off gleaming blades, and Blade moves like a shadow, silent, lethal, unshakable. His mission is clear. Locate Abraham Whistler, his mentor who supposedly perished in the first film. As the camera follows Blade's seamless infiltration of a vampire underground brawl, the air is electric. He's a force of nature, cutting through enemies until only one remains. That captive, a vampire named Rush, reveals a rumor darker than death itself. Whistler is alive. Blade's search leads to a hidden laboratory where Whistler, hooked to machines and undead, lies trapped. The tension ratchets up. Every step closer feels like a knife edge. Blade shatters glass, injects his mentor with a serum, and the old protector gasps back to life. Their reunion is wordless, raw, driven by survival instinct rather than sentiment. Enter Scud, the sarcastic young mechanic, snapping the silence with jokes as he hands over weaponry. Blade tolerates the irreverence. Whistler is back, and the war begins anew. But this is not the war he expected. From Whistler's revived intel emerges something new, something monstrous. Vampires are dying in grisly ways. Their bodies twisted, consumed from the inside, jaws splitting in unnatural ways. These are the Reapers, a new breed of vampire that preys on both humans and vampires. Whistler's grim assessment makes things clear. These aren't just killers. They are the end of everything. With stakes this high, the vampire hierarchy steps in. Eli Damaskinos, a leader among the undead, recognizes the threat and sees only one person capable of stopping it: Blade. He proposes an alliance, fragile and uneasy. Blade is offered a seat at the table with the Blood Pack, a team of vampires trained to kill him. Blade's response is cold and clipped, but pragmatic. He straps a control device to Reinhardt, their burly leader, ready to detonate if things go sideways. Trust is a weapon sharper than any blade. Introductions crackle with tension. Reinhardt rips into Blade with blistering insults. Verlaine, Lighthammer, Snowman, Priest, Chupa, and Assad bring their own philosophies, weapons, and rivalries. Nissa, Damaskinos' daughter, is present too. Her eyes cool, distant, torn between bloodline and conscience. Blade's presence fractures the group, forcing alliances that only survive through vulnerability and purpose. Their first mission launches in House of Pain, a vampiric nightclub pulsating with neon and liquid menace. The Reapers strike hard. Guns and knives fail against them. These creatures shrug off silver and wooden stakes, their flesh regenerating in seconds. When Priest is bitten mid-fight, the true scale of the danger becomes clear. One of their own falls, and sunlight ends the transformation in a flash of bone-chilling ash. Lighthammer hides her wound. Scud improvises UV grenades. Blade's interrogation of a lone Reaper could have ended in death, but sunlight saves him again. Nomak, the first Reaper, makes an appearance, Towering, feral, fast, and escapes like a phantom. Back at base, survivors retreat. Blade pores over evidence with Whistler. Whistler examines the dead Reaper and makes a breakthrough. The creature's heart is encased in bone, but vulnerable from the inside. They've got something to work with: UV light. Whistler and Scud begin modifications: grenades, projectors, rifles with ultraviolet ammo. They prepare for war. Nissa's involvement grows. She's more than royalty. She's a conduit between vampires and Blade. She examines the Reaper corpse, offering insights into their physiology. She defies her father's cold calculus with a spark of empathy. Blade doesn't trust her yet, but he respects her instincts. Their uneasy alliance crackles with unspoken tension, an electric bond that speaks of battles ahead. The team descends into the sewers, an underworld of sludge, bones, and whispered death, chasing the Reapers into their lair. Their entrance is silent and calculated. The staff are armed with UV devices. The lights dim, tension climbs. Reaper cries echo through tunnels. A trap springs. Lighthammer, bitten but hiding it, turns in front of the group. Snowman fights bravely but is overwhelmed. Chupa and Priest engage feral opponents. Assad stays close to Nissa. The claustrophobia builds to a crescendo. Then it happens. Lighthammer transforms mid-fight, snapping spinally. He attacks Snowman. Verlaine responds in desperation, her tears unseen as she pulls the unconscious Lighthammer into sunlight, watching her ally burn away in a cloud of ash. Chupa goes berserk, attacking Whistler, only to be devoured by Reapers drawn by biochemical pheromones Whistler released earlier. Assad is dragged under a flood of water. Nissa's scream echoes as Blade races back, detonates a UV bomb, drowning the nest in searing light. Nomak escapes once more, leaving devastation behind. Blade emerges from the ruins, bloodied and resolute. Nissa is wounded, collapsing into Blade's arms. Without hesitation, Blade offers his own blood. She drinks, her eyes flashing as she revives. Their shared breath is heavy with new understanding. Nissa's loyalty shifts, but silently. Blade doesn't lower his guard, but he honors the moment. They make it out of the tunnels battered and few. Scud waits, wide-eyed. Whistler nods, silent. Reinhardt glares at Blade. The mistrust is still there, but there's grudging respect. They've won a battle, but scars run deep. The Reaper threat isn't vanquished. Nomak is out there. Damaskinos' true motives are hidden. Alliances have shifted, and Blade stands at the center. He may have saved an ally in Nissa, but trust remains a luxury. The first half ends in that raw, tense place, where victory tastes like ash and every breath could be the last. The Reapers still lurk. Blade and his uneasy pack cling to survival while the war escalates. Blood, betrayal, and monsters blur the line between predator and protector. And at the center stands Blade, half human, half vampire, a lone shadow at the edge of a dawning apocalypse. From the moment Blade 2 begins, Blade himself stands at the film's pulse. A man forged of grief and purpose, walking a path no one asked him to take. Wesley Snipes channels that restless energy into a Blade who has already lost everything worth loving. His motivations are etched into every scar and line of dialogue, to protect humanity by destroying its predators. Unlike many superheroes, Blade never wants to be the hero. He is a weapon with focus, intensity, and no illusions. Snipes plays him with disciplined restraint. Every glance means something. Every flick of that sword counts. Across the film, Blade doesn't simply confront monsters. He confronts his own limitations, the question of loyalty, and what it means to be human when your blood isn't. Opposite Blade stands Nomak, the first Reaper. Luke Goss gives him raw, silent weight. He rarely speaks, but every movement carries betrayals unspoken. Nomak's body is a biological weapon, a prototype gone wrong. But under that monstrous rage is a tragic origin. A child created, abandoned, studied. He is the flip side of Blade. Blade's a hunter born of choice. Nomak is a monster born of ambition. As the story unfolds, Nomak's rage reveals heartbreak. Goss plays it feral but faintly human. giving him flickers of consciousness amidst his violence. This is what makes Nomak haunting. In death, he's more than a monster. He's the wreckage of ambition, and the broken mirror Blade never wanted to look into. Then there is Nyssa, Damaskinos' daughter, torn between legacy and empathy. Leonor Varela brings cool poise and internal conflict to the role. Early on, Nyssa feels duty-bound, a loyal child of vampire royalty. But as the Reaper threat grows, so does her unease. Her father's plans reveal themselves, the engineering of Nomak, the manipulation of Blade, the use of her as puppet. But Nyssa doesn't break. She hesitates, falters, but ultimately chooses morality over family. The way Varela holds her gaze on Blade, and then on her father, shows loyalty shifting without words. She becomes a bridge between worlds. Vampire by blood, humane by choice. In the quiet moments before her final sacrifice, when she asks to see the sun, Nyssa is grace and tragic clarity. The performance cuts deeper than monologues ever could. Whistler is the soul behind the edge. Wounded, sarcastic, fatalistic. Kris Kristofferson returns not as a stoic mentor, but as a man touched by death, transformed, and still alight with something like hope. His motivations aren't heroism, they're survival, revenge, and loyalty. Whistler sees the cost of Blade's war because he wears it. He laughs at death more than anyone, but quietly steers Blade when he can. His interactions with Scud add warmth and tension. And when betrayal tears their tech wing apart, Whistler refuses to falter. He's backbone and conscience in one wounded package. Scud seems like comic relief at first, a snarky, stoned gearhead made to operate cameras and handy UV gear. Yet his transformation into traitor hits hard because of how casual he felt. His motivations are greed and survival, disguised as humor. The instant we hear he's working for Damaskinos, it reshapes every earlier scene. He's a reminder that even in tight bonds, someone's always watching. The performance is subtle, Scud jokes, smiles, texts, but there's little flashes of fear, self-interest, and calculation underneath. When Blade detonates the explosive in his face, it lands as both shock and poetic justice, because Blade was never fooled. Reinhardt and the rest of the Blood Pack begin as Blade's antagonists. Vampires trained to fight him. Reinhardt is muscle, anger, hatred, everything Blade suppresses. But he's human enough to bruise under the control device strapped to his skull. As the team fractures and trust shatters, Reinhardt's posture shifts from cocky aggression to fragile weakness. His death at Nomak's hands stings, not because Reinhardt was noble, but because he was real. He believed in vampire superiority. He believed Blade was wrong, and he died slamming into denial. Snowman, Lighthammer, Verlaine, Priest, and Assad. They are more than dead faces in action. Each has style, weapon, personality. Snowman is broad and silent, a brawler who fades under overwhelming odds. Lighthammer is fierce and loyal, her hesitation when infected fractures trust. Verlaine is torn, lover of Lighthammer, fighter, and witness to betrayal. Priest is devout, a moral soldier who turns monster mid-battle. Assad's death while protecting Nyssa lends emotional weight to her eventual choices. They fade early in the second half, but their presence echoes. Every loss loosens alliances and tightens Blade's resolve. Damaskinos remains an imposing figure in the background until his flaws unravel the plot. He speaks of honor, order, cure, but beneath it is ambition. He's seeking control over biology and politics in equal measure. His motivations are empire and legacy. And the moment Blade realizes there is no cure, only lies, Damaskinos becomes the puppet master undone by his own game. He's brilliant, regal, and monstrous. In his final moments under Nomak's crushing vengeance, we see what happens when the creator becomes the victim of his own ambitions. Tie this together, and every character arc winds into Blade's path. Blade begins alone and stays alone, but the story around him shifts. Nyssa becomes choice when legacy fails. Nomak becomes consequence when ambition overshoots. Whistler stays human in the brutal world. Scud is the betrayal that tests loyalty. The Blood Pack collapse under the weight of their ideologies. Through them all, Blade's mission doesn't change, eliminate the threat. but the meaning of his mission deepens. Blade's arc is about control. He lives by discipline, yet the truth reveals control is an illusion. Nomak was engineered. Blade was manipulated. Nissa's life was curated. Even the devices meant to protect him become weapons against him. In the end, Blade chooses the only constant, truth. He rejects false alliances. He rejects authority built on lies. He destroys Nomak's prototype, destroys Damaskinos' regime, and honors Nissa's choice. He remains alone, but now chosen. The performances make each arc unforgettable. Snipes is stillness in motion. Goss is fury incarnate. Varela is wounded dignity. Kristofferson is humor in loss. Each actor lives their half of Blade's story. Ambition, betrayal, empathy, revenge, sacrifice. They're not themes, but flesh and bone across characters. Supporting roles ripple into the main story. The Bloodpack's pain makes Blade's leadership necessary. Scud's betrayal proves trust is fragile. Whistler's survival is Blade's lifeline. Damaskinos' ambition becomes Blade's crossroads. Nomak's death becomes the reckoning. And Nissa's sacrifice becomes the only light in the burnout of war. As Blade 2 unfolds, the surface of its story tells a high-stakes vampire tale, but beneath lies a rich tapestry of subtle references and symbolic flourishes, rewarding viewers who watch closely. The film pulses with callbacks to vampire mythology, comic lore, and cultural nods that deepen its themes and sharpen its impact. Right from the start, the choice to call the new vampire mutant Reapers isn't random. The name evokes grim inevitability, death itself harvesting victims. This echoes classic horror motifs but also cleverly foreshadows the Reapers' insatiable hunger and rapid evolution. Their biting leaves not just wounds but a viral transformation, a slow death turning into monstrous rebirth. This biological metaphor of disease and mutation taps into broader anxieties of the late 90s and early 2000s about contagion, pandemics, and genetic engineering, issues quietly threaded into the Reaper's design. The film's very aesthetic plays with symbolism. The black leather and sleek weaponry of Blade visually recall the iconography of vampires as modern predators, but the Reaper's distorted anatomy, elongated limbs, grotesque teeth, exposed muscle, reflects the Frankensteinian horror of science gone awry. This visual contrast between Blade's disciplined, almost sterile design and the Reaper's chaotic mutation speaks to a deeper theme: control versus chaos. Blade's black outfit is armor, a visual metaphor for restraint, while the Reapers embody uncontrolled biological horror. It's a clash not just of beings but of ideals. The Vampire Council's headquarters, Damaskinos' lair, is itself rich with visual Easter eggs. The Gothic architecture is littered with religious symbolism: stained glass, crucifixes turned upside down, and intricate carvings. These elements subtly challenge traditional religious icons, flipping them to fit vampire mythology's inversion of life and death. Even the name Damaskinos nods to Byzantine roots, hinting at the centuries-old vampire lineage that predates the modern setting. His regal, almost ecclesiastical bearing evokes the idea of corrupted priesthood, a leader more pope than king, reminding viewers that vampire power in the film is a twisted blend of faith, science, and politics. Another layer reveals itself in the characters' names. Nissa, the daughter caught between worlds, derives from Greek meaning goal or beginning, symbolizing hope and renewal amid decay. Her final act, asking to see the sun, echoes classical tragedies where the doomed seek light before the end. Nomak's name is Cayman, spelled backwards, tying him linguistically to his creator and hinting at inversion and duality. Blade, of course, represents the sharp edge between humanity and monster, a living metaphor for balance and sacrifice. Dialogues too hide clever callbacks. When Blade talks about hunting and control, his language borrows from vampire lore but also classic noir. His cool, clipped sentences echo private detective archetypes. The screenplay uses this sparingly but effectively, grounding supernatural chaos in human grit. Whistler's sarcastic quips are peppered with references to vampire fiction and pop culture, including sly nods to earlier vampire films and the comics, reminding attentive viewers of Blade's rich media lineage. One of the most rewarding details is the film's use of light and shadow. Scenes where sunlight filters in are rare but loaded with meaning. When Nyssa asks to see the sun, it's not just a mercy. It symbolizes release from darkness, redemption, and the human longing for purity. In contrast, the underground sewers and vampire lairs are bathed in cold, artificial light or pitch blackness, reinforcing the themes of confinement and moral ambiguity. The interplay of light throughout the film is a visual metaphor for the characters' internal struggles between their monstrous nature and their humanity. The film's soundtrack and sound design also hide subtle clues. The Reaper's hisses and growls were crafted using layered animal sounds, including bats and reptiles, creating an uncanny sense of otherness that goes beyond mere vampire growls. This design choice heightens the visceral horror and ties back to nature's darker corners, where mutation and survival intermingle. Similarly, Blade's theme, with its aggressive techno beats, underscores his relentless drive, mirroring the heartbeat of the city's night. In terms of narrative foreshadowing, several moments are masterfully placed. Early on, when Nyssa questions her father's motives, her hesitation hints at the eventual fracture in vampire alliances. The explosive device in Reinhardt's head, planted as a control mechanism, foreshadows the theme of manipulation and betrayal that unfolds later with Scud. Blade's reluctance to fully trust the Vampire Council from the beginning signals the eventual breakdown of alliances and the necessity of his lone warrior ethos. Even the props carry significance. Blade's sword, sleek and silver, symbolizes purity and justice against darkness, but its wear and scratches tell a story of countless battles and sacrifices. The UV grenades, flashy and destructive, represent the technological edge humanity wields against supernatural threats, a modern twist on ancient vampire weaknesses. A hidden gem lies in the way the film handles blood. Far from simple gore, blood is a narrative device. Nyssa's feeding on Blade isn't just survival but a symbolic merging of vampire and daywalker worlds, a crossing of lines between hunter and hunted, enemy and ally. This act foreshadows Blade's own internal struggle and the blurring boundaries that define his existence. The movie also slips in subtle nods to its comic origins. References to characters like Deacon Frost are minimal but present in background dialogue and visual cues, tying the story to a larger mythos. This enriches the experience for comic fans without alienating casual viewers, creating a layered world that rewards deeper exploration. Even the smaller characters have Easter eggs embedded in their design and dialogue. For example, the Blood Pack members' distinct personalities and weapons nod to classic vampire hunter tropes while also subverting them. Lighthammer's hesitation and eventual fate hint at the cost of loyalty in this brutal world. Verlaine's anguish and Priest's devotion provide shades of moral complexity rarely seen in action horror films of the era. One of the cleverest hidden details is the film's portrayal of mutation itself. The Reaper's evolution isn't just physical but symbolic of unchecked ambition and the dangers of tampering with nature. This resonates with the film's late 90s context, reflecting cultural fears about genetic engineering, viral outbreaks, and scientific hubris. It's a subtle critique woven into the fabric of a vampire action movie. Finally, the ending's quiet moment, with Blade walking alone into the dawn, carries weight beyond narrative closure. It's a visual callback to classic vampire lore where sunlight is the ultimate purifier and destroyer, symbolizing hope amid darkness. Blade's silhouette against the rising sun underscores his unique status. Not fully human, not fully monster, but a guardian on the thin line between worlds. Every detail, from the names and set designs to sound and symbolic actions, folds into the story's texture, creating a rich cinematic experience. The Easter eggs and hidden meanings aren't just clever tricks. They deepen the film's exploration of identity, power, and survival in a world where monsters aren't just creatures but reflections of human fears and ambitions. Making Blade 2 was far from a straightforward process. Behind the sleek, action-packed vampire saga lay a production filled with both creative breakthroughs and unexpected hurdles that shaped the final film in surprising ways. This was a project where ambition met obstacles head-on, where creative risks sparked innovation, and where the cast and crew's dedication turned challenges into defining moments. From the outset, the production team knew they had to deliver more than just another vampire action movie. The original Blade had set a high bar with its stylish blend of martial arts, horror, and comic book flair. The sequel needed to up the ante. This meant not just bigger fights and more elaborate creatures, but an entire new mythology with the Reapers. A fresh take on vampires as evolved predators. Designing the Reapers was a major creative challenge that pushed the special effects and makeup teams to new limits. The creatures had to feel both terrifying and believable, a monstrous evolution rather than a simple horror cliché. The practical effects and creature design were led by the talented team at K&B EFX Group, who had the difficult task of blending prosthetics with digital effects. The Reaper's grotesque features, elongated jaws, exposed muscle, rapidly shifting forms, were achieved through layers of silicone makeup and animatronics combined with CGI enhancements. This hybrid approach was cutting-edge for the time but required painstaking hours in makeup chairs for the actors and complex setups on set. It was not uncommon for the actors playing Reapers to spend up to 6 hours under prosthetics, which tested their stamina and focus. One of the strangest moments came when the crew had to coordinate practical effects with digital overlays, often leading to long delays and multiple takes to get the frightening movements just right. Wesley Snipes, returning as Blade, brought not only his star power but also his serious commitment to the role's physical demands. He performed many of his own stunts, which included intense fight choreography blending martial arts, swordplay, and gunfighting. Snipes worked closely with the fight choreographer Jeff Amata to develop new combat sequences that felt fresh and dynamic. One memorable and slightly dangerous moment occurred during a rooftop fight scene where Snipes almost fell, but his quick reflexes saved him. This incident underscored how physical and risky the production could be, even with safety measures in place. Director Guillermo del Toro's vision deeply influenced the film's distinctive style, blending horror and action with a dark fairy tale sensibility. Del Toro was known for his meticulous attention to detail and love of practical effects, which shaped everything from set designs to creature movements. But his hands-on approach sometimes led to friction with the studio, who were eager for a faster shoot and a commercially viable product. Del Toro's insistence on atmospheric lighting and complex makeup often meant longer shooting days and higher costs, leading to tense negotiations behind the scenes. Leonor Varela, who played Nissa, has shared in interviews that stepping into the role was both thrilling and demanding. She was tasked with portraying a character caught between loyalty and conscience, which required emotional subtlety beneath the film's action-heavy surface. The makeup and costuming for Nissa had to strike a balance between regal vampire elegance and warrior readiness, reflecting her inner conflict visually. Varela has mentioned that one of the hardest scenes to shoot was Nissa's final moments, where the emotional weight had to come through without overt dialogue, relying on expression and presence. This scene required multiple takes, as the crew and director worked to capture just the right tone of tragic grace. One unusual production challenge involved the film's complex underground sewer scenes. These sequences, where Blade and his team hunt the Reapers, were filmed in actual tunnels beneath Budapest. The location added an authentic claustrophobic feel but posed logistical nightmares. The narrow corridors made camera placement and lighting extremely difficult. Crew members had to deal with damp conditions, limited space for equipment, and a constant risk of flooding. On one occasion, a sudden rainstorm caused water to rise unexpectedly, forcing a temporary halt and evacuation. Despite these issues, the setting's rawness added undeniable atmosphere that CGI could never replicate. The supporting cast brought their own stories and dynamics to the production. Kris Kristofferson's return as Whistler was highly anticipated. His laid-back, slightly world-weary presence contrasted with the intense action around him. Behind the scenes, Kristofferson was known for his calm demeanor and occasional storytelling on set, easing the tension during long shoots. However, some reports mentioned that the actor's health was a concern during filming, leading to scheduling adjustments. His character's fate in the film added a layer of emotional weight that mirrored the actor's real-life resilience and vulnerability. Luke Goss's portrayal of Nomak, the terrifying Reaper prototype, was a physically demanding role. The makeup and prosthetics required him to convey ferocity with limited facial movement, pushing him to express rage and pain through body language alone. Goss trained extensively to embody the character's primal energy, incorporating animalistic movements and snarls. Interestingly, the character's silence made his presence even more unsettling, and Goss has spoken about how this required a different kind of acting discipline, relying heavily on physicality rather than dialogue. One of the strangest stories from the set involves the character Scud, played by Norman Reedus. Originally intended as comic relief, Scud's arc took a darker turn, culminating in betrayal and a shocking death scene. Reedus's laid-back attitude on set contrasted with the character's eventual grim fate. According to some anecdotes, the actor was often improvising lines and adding a quirky energy that the director welcomed, even when it complicated shooting schedules. The explosive final scene with Scud was achieved with a combination of practical effects and clever editing, creating a memorable shock that surprised many in the cast. The film also had its share of controversies and tightrope moments. Studio executives were nervous about the film's darker tone and graphic violence. There were debates about how much gore to show, especially in the Reaper's attacks and deaths. Guillermo del Toro fought to maintain the film's horror edge without sacrificing its rating. This tug-of-war shaped the final cut, balancing intense action with moments of horror that felt unsettling but not gratuitous. Some fans and critics felt the film pushed boundaries, while others appreciated its willingness to explore mature themes within a superhero framework. Interestingly, the film's score and soundtrack underwent several iterations. Marco Beltrami composed the original score, blending orchestral and electronic elements to match the film's hybrid horror action tone. But the producers also brought in artists from the emerging electronic and industrial scenes to contribute songs, creating a soundtrack that feels simultaneously futuristic and gritty. This musical layering adds depth to the film's urban nightscape, echoing Blade's role as a predator navigating a neon-lit underworld. Supernatural elements. While CGI was still in a relatively early stage, the filmmakers were eager to experiment with blending practical and digital effects. This balancing act sometimes caused delays and required additional post-production work, but it also laid groundwork for the more seamless digital effects seen in later films. On the cultural side, Blade 2 contributed to expanding the presence of superhero films with diverse leads. Wesley Snipes' portrayal of Blade was groundbreaking. A black superhero who wasn't sidekick or comic relief but the central, complex figure. Behind the scenes, Snipes was an advocate for portraying Blade with authenticity, pushing for fight choreography and dialogue that respected his character's roots. This commitment helped cement Blade as a cult icon and opened doors for future films to embrace more diverse storytelling. The chemistry between the cast, particularly between Snipes and Varela, was palpable and often cited as a highlight. Their off-screen interactions reportedly influenced the director's decisions on framing their scenes, allowing moments of subtle tension and connection to shine through. This organic dynamic contributed to the film's emotional core, grounding the supernatural spectacle in relatable human conflict. Perhaps one of the most fascinating behind-the-scenes tales involves the practical challenges of filming fight sequences in the sewer tunnels. The limited space forced choreographers and stunt coordinators to rethink traditional action choreography, focusing on tight, intense movements rather than sprawling battles. This constraint inspired some of the film's most memorable fight scenes, where every punch, kick, and sword strike feels visceral and impactful. Finally, the film's release itself was marked by a wave of anticipation and debate. Critics praised its stylish direction and innovative creature design, while some questioned its narrative complexity and pacing. The audience's enthusiasm, however, cemented Blade 2 as a cult favorite and a milestone in vampire and superhero cinema. The legacy of its production, marked by creative risks, technical innovation, and passionate performances, continues to influence genre filmmaking. In essence, the story of Blade 2's making is as compelling as the film itself. It's a tale of artistic vision wrestling with practical realities, of actors pushing their limits to bring complex characters to life, and of a production team breaking new ground in effects and storytelling. The strange facts and behind-the-scenes stories reveal a movie shaped by dedication, ambition, and a willingness to embrace both darkness and light, a fitting mirror to the film's own themes. Blade 2 is more than a relentless action horror sequel. It's a film defined by its carefully crafted key moments that resonate deeply with audiences, shaping the emotional and thematic core of the story. These scenes aren't just spectacle. They carry the weight of character, conflict, and meaning, elevating the film beyond genre trappings into something memorable and profound. One of the earliest impactful scenes sets the tone immediately. The opening battle where Blade faces off against the Reapers in a darkened industrial complex. The raw intensity of this sequence, with Blade's sleek combat style clashing against the Reaper's brutal, animalistic fury, is thrilling but layered. It introduces viewers not only to the physical stakes but to the thematic undercurrents of control versus chaos. Blade embodies order, discipline, and a mission, while the Reapers represent unrestrained mutation and primal survival. The choreography here is sharp, precise, and unrelenting, underscoring Blade's prowess but also his vulnerability. The stark lighting and shadows, combined with harsh sound design, the snarl of the Reapers, the clang of weapons, immerse viewers in a visceral experience that feels immediate and dangerous. This scene hooks the audience, establishing Blade not just as a fighter, but as a symbol of humanity's last stand against monstrous change. As the story unfolds, the tension between Blade and Nyssa emerges as a central emotional thread, and their first major confrontation is a standout moment. Nyssa's conflicted loyalty, torn between her father Damaskinos and Blade's crusade, adds complexity rarely afforded to characters in action-heavy films. Their dialogue crackles with underlying pain and ideological clash. Nyssa's elegant but fierce demeanor contrasts with Blade's hardened resolve, creating a dynamic charged with both attraction and opposition. This scene reveals the film's exploration of identity and belonging. Nyssa struggles with her vampire heritage and desire for peace, while Blade battles his role as an outsider straddling two worlds. The emotional depth here elevates the film's stakes from physical survival to existential struggle, inviting viewers to invest in more than just the action. One of the film's most haunting moments arrives during the tense negotiations at the Vampire Council. Damaskinos' regal presence and the court's gothic atmosphere contrast starkly with the violence that lurks beneath their veneer of civility. The scene plays out like a twisted political drama, reminding viewers that power within the vampire world is as ruthless and fragile as any human institution. This moment highlights the film's thematic concern with corruption and the cost of survival, showing that alliances are fraught and fragile. The subtle glances, clipped dialogue, and underlying threats create an atmosphere thick with distrust. It's a reminder that in Blade 2, monsters come not only in fangs and claws but in political intrigue. The film's middle section brings a dramatic shift with Nomak's emergence. The Reaper prototype, whose transformation and relentless pursuit of Nyssa and Blade ratchets up the tension to nearly unbearable levels. His silent, brutal presence is a masterstroke of character design and performance. The scenes where Nomak stalks his prey, marked by slow, predatory movements and chilling growls, create a sense of dread that underpins the film's horror elements. One particularly impactful sequence is the cat-and-mouse chase through the labyrinthine sewers. The claustrophobic setting, punctuated by flickering lights and the echo of dripping water, amplifies the terror. Blade's encounter with Nomak here is not just a physical confrontation but a battle of wills. This sequence deepens the film's exploration of the monstrous other and forces Blade to confront what he might become. Audience reactions to these moments often blend exhilaration with unease, a testament to the filmmaker's skill in balancing horror and action. Nyssa's arc culminates in one of the film's most emotionally resonant scenes, her final moments before death, where she asks to see the sun one last time. This quiet yet powerful scene breaks from the film's usual adrenaline and gore to offer a glimpse of vulnerability and grace. The significance is multi-layered. The sun symbolizes purity, hope, and ultimate freedom from the curse of vampirism. Nyssa's request and Blade's solemn compliance serve as a moment of redemption and reconciliation between their worlds. It's a poignant acknowledgement of sacrifice and the longing for peace amid chaos. The subtle performances here, Varella's restrained grief and Snipes' stoic compassion, make this a standout emotional beat, deeply affecting the audience. This moment shapes the film's overall tone, reminding viewers that even in darkness, there is humanity and sorrow. Equally important is the film's climactic showdown, where Blade confronts Nomak in a battle that is as much about ideology as it is about survival. The choreography here is frenetic and brutal, pushing both characters to their limits. But beyond the physicality, the fight embodies the film's core conflict. The struggle between order and chaos, human and monster, control and instinct. Nomak's desperation and pain contrast with Blade's focused determination, creating a tragic resonance. The film doesn't merely portray good versus evil but delves into the gray areas of identity and transformation. This climax resonates with audiences because it combines explosive action with thematic depth, making the resolution both satisfying and thought-provoking. Another key moment that often sparks discussion is the death of Whistler, Blade's mentor and surrogate father figure. Whistler's passing is more than a plot device. It's a turning point that forces Blade into solitude and heightens the film's emotional stakes. The scene is handled with care, balancing grief with a hardening resolve. Kristofferson's subtle performance conveys the weight of years and the toll of their dangerous lives. Whistler's death symbolizes the loss of guidance and the passing of an era, pushing Blade to fully embrace his role as the lone warrior. Audience reactions to this scene are often heartfelt, appreciating the film's willingness to explore themes of loss and legacy within a genre film. Throughout the movie, the tension between Blade and the Vampire Council is underscored by several scenes where trust is tested and alliances shift. These moments, including Scud's betrayal, add layers of intrigue and unpredictability. The filmmakers use these twists to challenge the audience's expectations, keeping the narrative dynamic and engaging. Scud's final explosion is particularly shocking, blending dark humor with tragedy and underscoring the film's theme that trust is fragile in this violent world. These narrative choices enrich the film's texture, inviting viewers to question loyalties and motivations. Visually, Blade 2 makes powerful use of contrast and color, which intensifies key moments. The stark black leather of Blade's costume against the Reaper's fleshy, grotesque mutations creates an almost visceral visual metaphor for the clash between order and chaos. Scenes bathed in cold, artificial light, such as the Vampire Council chambers, feel sterile and oppressive, while the underground tunnels are cloaked in shadow and flickering illumination, heightening suspense. This careful use of lighting complements the narrative, shaping mood and emphasizing thematic contrasts. The film's sound design also plays a crucial role in its impact. The Reaper's snarls and hisses, crafted from layered animal sounds, add a primal terror to their presence, while Blade's techno-inspired theme music injects energy and urgency into action scenes. The subtle shifts in soundscape during quiet, emotional moments, like Nissa's death, allow the audience to settle into the film's quieter depths. This blending of sound elements enhances immersion and emotional resonance. Blade 2's key moments collectively build an experience that feels both thrilling and meaningful. Each impactful scene works not in isolation, but as part of a seamless narrative that explores identity, sacrifice, and survival. The film invites viewers not just to witness spectacular battles, but to engage with the characters' struggles and transformations. It balances pulse-pounding action with emotional weight and thematic complexity, creating a layered story that rewards attention and reflection. This dynamic interplay of action, character, and theme is why Blade 2 endures as a cult classic. Its most memorable moments are those where the adrenaline rush gives way to human conflict and moral ambiguity, leaving audiences both entertained and moved. Whether it's the electrifying opening fight, the tender farewell in the sun, or the brutal showdown with Nomak, these scenes anchor the film's lasting impact, reminding viewers that even in a world of monsters, the heart of the story is deeply human. At its core, Blade 2 is a film about boundaries between worlds, identities, and moral choices, and it explores these boundaries with an intensity that transcends its vampire action genre. Beneath the kinetic fight scenes and creature horror, the movie weaves a layered narrative about transformation, belonging, and the complexity of what it means to be human or not. One of the film's central themes revolves around duality and hybridity, embodied most clearly in Blade himself. As a half-vampire, half-human daywalker, Blade occupies an uneasy space straddling two worlds. His existence challenges the strict binaries often drawn between good and evil, human and monster. This liminal identity forces him to constantly negotiate who he is and where he belongs. This tension is echoed in the film's narrative arc, where Blade must ally with vampires, the very creatures he hunts, to combat the Reapers, a new breed that threatens both sides. This uneasy alliance reflects the film's broader exploration of coexistence amid conflict. Blade's journey embodies the struggle to reconcile opposing forces within oneself and in the world, inviting viewers to consider the complexities of identity beyond simple labels. The Reapers themselves symbolize unchecked mutation and fear of the other. Unlike traditional vampires, the Reapers are savage, rapidly evolving predators that blur the line between monster and disease. Their very existence questions what defines monstrosity. Is it nature, choice, or something else entirely? The Reaper's insatiable hunger and uncontrollable transformation serve as a chilling metaphor for societal anxieties about infection, contamination, and loss of control. Timeless fears that resonate with real-world concerns about pandemics, addiction, and other crises that threaten social order. By positioning the Reapers as a threat to both humans and vampires, the film highlights the fragility of established identities and hierarchies, pushing its characters and audience to confront fear of change and the unknown. Nissa's character adds another layer to the theme of divided loyalties and the cost of heritage. As Damaskinos' daughter, she is steeped in vampire tradition, but yearns for peace between humans and vampires. Her internal conflict mirrors the film's broader negotiation between violence and coexistence. Nissa's ultimate sacrifice, her request to see the sun before dying, symbolizes a longing for purification, redemption, and the possibility of transcendence beyond inherited curses. This moment also evokes the archetypal theme of tragic heroism, where personal loss carries the weight of hope for a better future. Nissa's journey highlights the film's meditation on legacy, how the past shapes identity and whether one can break free from it. The Vampire Council scenes are laden with political symbolism, casting vampirism as an allegory for entrenched power structures and elite control. Their cold, opulent chambers, full of ritual and etiquette, represent a ruling class clinging to tradition while facing existential threats. The Council's machinations and fragile alliances reflect real-world political dynamics, distrust, betrayal, and the constant negotiation of power. This adds a layer of social commentary on governance, authority, and the costs of maintaining order. The film suggests that even within supposedly immortal or powerful entities, vulnerability and internal conflict persist, humanizing these mythical figures and making their struggles relatable. Trust and betrayal emerge as recurring motifs, underscoring the precariousness of alliances forged in desperation. The uneasy partnership between Blade and the vampires is riddled with suspicion, revealing how fear and past grievances complicate cooperation. Scud's betrayal punctuates this theme, illustrating how personal agendas can unravel even the most critical coalitions. This motif resonates beyond the narrative, echoing real-world issues in diplomacy, community building, and social cohesion, where distrust often undermines collective efforts. The film thus becomes a meditation on the challenges of unity amid diversity and history. Symbolism runs deep in the film's visual language, reinforcing its themes in subtle but powerful ways. The recurrent imagery of light and darkness, especially in Blade's interactions with Nissa and the sun, reflects the tension between hope and despair, life and death. The sun, traditionally lethal to vampires, takes on symbolic significance as a source of cleansing and release. Nissa's final gaze toward the sunlight is not only a farewell, but an emblem of aspiration for a world where darkness no longer dominates. This interplay between light and shadow permeates the film's aesthetic, where chiaroscuro lighting and stark contrasts visually echo the narrative's moral ambiguities. The design of Blade's costume itself is symbolic. His black leather and silver accents convey both his warrior identity and his isolation. The armor-like quality of his outfit signals protection but also a barrier between him and others, underscoring his solitary journey. His signature sword and arsenal, blending traditional weapons with modern technology, symbolize the fusion of old and new, reflecting Blade's hybrid nature and the film's thematic exploration of past and future clashing and coalescing. The sewer tunnels, where much of the film's action unfolds, function as more than just a setting. They symbolize the underbelly of society and the hidden, darker aspects of existence. The claustrophobic, labyrinthine environment reflects the characters' psychological states. Trapped, navigating threats on all sides, and confronting the monstrous within and without. This subterranean world serves as a metaphor for the subconscious, where repressed fears and primal instincts dwell. By staging pivotal confrontations in these tunnels, the film externalizes inner conflicts and amplifies the tension between survival and surrender. Beyond its vampire mythology, Blade 2 subtly comments on issues of race and representation. Wesley Snipes' portrayal of Blade as a strong, complex black hero was groundbreaking at the time, challenging Hollywood's often limited roles for black actors, especially in genre films. The film's narrative, focusing on an outsider who refuses to be defined solely by his heritage, mirrors real-world struggles against stereotyping and marginalization. Blade's confident, assertive presence serves as a powerful counter-narrative to conventional heroism, emphasizing empowerment and resilience in the face of systemic challenges. The film also explores themes of sacrifice and the costs of heroism. Blade's relentless fight against the Reapers requires alliances that blur moral lines and personal losses that weigh heavily on him. His stoic determination is tempered by moments of vulnerability and grief, humanizing the superhero figure. This nuanced portrayal invites viewers to reflect on the emotional toll of warfare, even when waged against monstrous foes. The sacrifices made by Nyssa, Whistler, and others deepen this motif, painting heroism as a complex, often painful path rather than a simple triumph. Furthermore, Blade 2 delves into the concept of evolution, not just biological but social and personal. The Reapers represent an extreme, uncontrollable evolution, a cautionary symbol of what happens when progress loses ethical grounding. In contrast, Blade and his allies symbolize intentional evolution through choice and control. This tension between natural mutation and conscious transformation invites reflection on humanity's relationship with change, technology, and morality. The film poses urgent questions about where to draw the line between survival and destruction, adaptation and loss of identity. On a broader cultural level, Blade 2 reflects early 2000s anxieties about urban decay, disease, and globalization. Its dark, gritty urban landscape teems with danger and distrust, mirroring contemporary fears about city life and social fragmentation. The film's depiction of hidden threats lurking beneath the surface, whether in sewers or society, echoes concerns about unseen dangers like crime, illness, and political instability. By framing these fears within a supernatural narrative, the movie taps into collective unease while offering a cathartic, albeit stylized, confrontation with those fears. In sum, Blade 2 uses its vampire and action tropes as a canvas to explore deep and multifaceted themes. Its narrative wrestles with identity and otherness, power and sacrifice, evolution and legacy, all set against a backdrop of darkness pierced by fleeting hope. Symbolic elements, from light and shadow to costume and setting, reinforce these themes, creating a richly textured world where every detail holds meaning. The film's social commentary, whether on race, politics, or urban life, emerges naturally from its story, giving it relevance beyond the screen. This seamless integration of theme and story is what makes Blade 2 resonate long after the final frame. It challenges viewers to look beyond monsters and heroes to the questions they embody, about who we are, what we fear, and what we're willing to fight for. In doing so, the film transcends its genre, becoming a meditation on the human condition cloaked in leather and shadow. From the very first frame, Blade 2 announces itself not just as an action-packed vampire thriller, but as a film meticulously crafted through its distinctive cinematic language. The visual style, sound design, and editing work in concert to create an immersive world where every shadow, every cut, and every note plays a vital role in shaping the viewer's experience. This film's aesthetic identity is a testament to director Guillermo del Toro's unique vision, one that blends genre elements with artistic flair to elevate the story beyond conventional boundaries. The cinematography of Blade 2 is a defining feature that instantly sets its tone. The film makes masterful use of chiaroscuro lighting, the sharp contrasts between light and darkness, that echo the story's themes of duality and hidden truths. Scenes are often drenched in deep shadows punctuated by bursts of harsh, artificial light, evoking an urban underworld both gritty and surreal. This visual tension mirrors Blade's own existence, caught between human and vampire, order and chaos. The camera work complements this aesthetic with a mix of fluid tracking shots and sudden, kinetic moves that thrust the viewer into the heart of the action. Whether sweeping through the claustrophobic sewer tunnels or zeroing in on the cold determination etched on Blade's face, the cinematography maintains a dynamic balance of scope and intimacy. Guillermo Navarro's cinematography embraces a palette dominated by blues, blacks, and muted metallic tones, reinforcing the film's cold, industrial atmosphere. This color scheme underscores the film's exploration of alienation and danger lurking beneath the city's surface. In moments of tension or violence, splashes of red, often blood or the Reaper's glowing wounds, pierce the darkness, jolting the senses and highlighting the visceral stakes. These color choices are more than aesthetic. They are narrative tools that visually encode the emotional and thematic currents running through the film. Editing plays a crucial role in shaping Blade 2's relentless pace while preserving narrative clarity. The film's editing rhythm is carefully calibrated, fast and aggressive during combat sequences to convey urgency and chaos, yet measured and deliberate during quieter, character-driven scenes to allow emotional beats to resonate. The sharp cuts and fight scenes, often punctuated by quick zooms and whip pans, create an adrenaline-fueled momentum that immerses the audience in the physicality of combat. However, the editing avoids disorienting fragmentation. Each move, each hit, is coherent and impactful, showcasing Blade's martial prowess and the Reaper's ferocity. This balance keeps viewers grounded amidst the chaos, heightening suspense and investment. Sound design in Blade 2 deserves special attention as a subtle yet powerful storytelling device. The film's auditory landscape is meticulously layered to enhance immersion and emotional impact. The snarls and growls of the Reapers, for example, are crafted from a mix of animalistic and otherworldly sounds, creating creatures that feel terrifyingly real yet distinctly monstrous. This soundscape deepens the horror element, making the Reapers not just visually but sonically menacing. In contrast, Blade's combat scenes are punctuated by the sharp clang of his swords, the buzz of silver bullets, and the thud of bodies hitting walls, grounding the supernatural in physical reality. The music score, composed by Marco Beltrami, complements these soundscapes with a driving, electronic-heavy soundtrack that infuses scenes with a modern, edgy energy. The pulsating beats and synthesized layers mirror Blade's relentless drive and the film's urban dystopian setting. During intense action sequences, the music amplifies tension and adrenaline, while in reflective moments, it pulls back to more atmospheric tones, allowing character emotions to surface. This dynamic use of music supports the film's emotional arc, subtly guiding audience reactions without overpowering the visuals or dialogue. Guillermo del Toro's stylistic choices throughout Blade 2 reinforce the film's themes and narrative depth. One of the most distinctive is the blending of horror and action genres, where grotesque creature design meets tightly choreographed fight choreography. The Reapers, with their biomechanical mutations, are a perfect example of this hybrid approach, horrifying in appearance yet integral to the film's kinetic energy. Their movements, captured through carefully staged camera work and practical effects, blur the line between monster and athlete, creating a visual spectacle that is both repulsive and captivating. This blending also reflects the film's thematic tension between chaos and control. The production design deserves praise for creating an immersive world that feels simultaneously grounded and mythic. The underground tunnels are not just backdrops but characters in their own right, claustrophobic, labyrinthine spaces that heighten suspense and symbolize the character's psychological entrapment. The vampire council chambers, in stark contrast, exude cold opulence, emphasizing the social hierarchy and political intrigue simmering beneath the surface. These contrasting environments, rendered through detailed set design and lighting, visually narrate the clash of worlds central to the story. Another unique stylistic hallmark is the film's use of slow motion and close-ups to accentuate critical moments. Slow motion sequences during fights not only highlight the precision and intensity of combat, but also give the audience time to absorb the emotional weight beneath the violence. Close-ups capture subtle facial expressions, Blade's grim determination, Nissa's conflicted resolve, that might otherwise be lost amid the action. This combination of pace and intimacy enriches the storytelling, balancing spectacle with character depth. The film's visual effects, a blend of practical and digital techniques, enhance realism without overwhelming the narrative. The Reaper's transformation scenes, for instance, use practical prosthetics augmented with CGI to create disturbing but believable mutations. These effects ground the supernatural in a tangible reality, making the horror visceral rather than abstract. The careful integration of effects ensures that the audience remains emotionally connected rather than distanced by spectacle. Sound editing further amplifies the film's tension through moments of silence or minimal sound, strategically placed to build anticipation or emphasize vulnerability. For example, the quiet before a sudden attack in the tunnels draws viewers into the character's heightened senses and fears. This control of auditory dynamics is a hallmark of Del Toro's direction, creating a layered sensory experience that goes beyond visuals alone. The director's vision also manifests in how Blade 2 uses spatial relationships within the frame. Characters are often positioned to emphasize isolation or alliance, Blade standing apart in wide shots, the vampires gathered tightly to convey unity or conspiracy. These compositional choices subtly communicate power dynamics and emotional states without relying solely on dialogue. This visual storytelling deepens the audience's understanding of relationships and conflicts organically. The film's pacing benefits from a well-crafted narrative rhythm, where moments of intense action alternate with scenes of political intrigue and personal drama. This ebb and flow prevent fatigue and maintain engagement, allowing viewers to absorb the story's emotional and thematic layers. The editing and cinematography work together to signal these shifts clearly, whether through changes in lighting, music, or camera movement. In sum, Blade 2 is a masterclass in cinematic technique and visual storytelling. Every element, from lighting and color to sound and editing, is thoughtfully employed to support and enhance the film's narrative and emotional impact. Guillermo del Toro's direction brings a distinctive style that balances genre thrills with artistic depth, creating a dark, immersive world where every frame tells a story. This seamless integration of form and content invites viewers not only to witness Blade's battles, but to feel the psychological and thematic stakes behind each fight, alliance, and sacrifice. The film's visual and auditory textures enrich the storytelling, making Blade 2 an experience that stays with the audience long after the credits roll. When you watch Blade 2, one of the first things that strikes you is the undeniable chemistry between the cast. A dynamic energy that propels the story forward and deepens the impact of every scene. Wesley Snipes, reprising his role as Blade, brings a magnetic presence that anchors the film, but it's the interplay between him and the supporting actors that truly elevates the experience. The tension, camaraderie, and occasional friction between characters feel authentic because the actors themselves connected on and off screen, creating a palpable sense of trust and engagement. Wesley Snipes carries Blade with a blend of stoicism and subtle emotion, but his interactions with Kris Kristofferson, who plays Whistler, reveal a layered relationship built on years of shared history and mutual respect. Their on-screen banter and moments of quiet understanding are grounded in the real rapport developed during filming. Kristofferson's grizzled, mentor-like portrayal complements Snipes' focused intensity perfectly. Behind the scenes, their camaraderie was reportedly marked by mutual admiration, which translated into a believable and touching partnership on screen. The dynamic between Snipes and Ron Perlman, who plays Reinhardt, the fierce vampire warrior, is another highlight. Their initially adversarial relationship evolves into one of necessity and grudging respect, mirroring the uneasy alliance at the story's heart. Perlman's commanding presence contrasts with Snipes' controlled intensity, creating a chemistry that sparks tension and humor. The actors reportedly spent time discussing their characters' motivations and backgrounds, allowing them to inject authenticity into their scenes. This preparation helped make their physical confrontations and collaborative moments feel lived in rather than choreographed. Beyond the leads, the cast's ensemble work stands out. Leonor Varela as Nissa delivers a nuanced performance of a character caught between loyalty and personal conviction, and her scenes with Snipes crackle with emotional complexity. The connection between Varela and Snipes was strengthened by the director's encouragement of improvisation and dialogue experimentation, giving their interactions a natural, fluid quality. This approach fostered a set environment where actors could explore their characters' relationships freely, resulting in moments of genuine vulnerability that enriched the narrative. The supporting cast, featuring talents like Norman Reedus, Donnie Yen, and Matthew Davis, adds depth and texture to the film. Donnie Yen's role as Snowman, in particular, brought a fresh physicality and martial artistry that injected new life into the fight sequences. Yen's background in martial arts allowed him to contribute ideas to choreography, which director Guillermo del Toro embraced, further blurring the line between actor and creative collaborator. The synergy between Yen and Snipes during fight scenes comes across as a dynamic dance, born from mutual respect and shared expertise. Behind the scenes, the set itself fostered a collaborative atmosphere that shaped the final film. Del Toro's reputation as a director who values actor input and creative freedom was evident during production. The underground sewer sets were notoriously challenging, with cramped spaces, complex lighting rigs, and practical effects making filming physically demanding. Yet, the cast and crew embraced these difficulties, often joking and bonding in the tight quarters, which translated into on-screen chemistry and camaraderie. One behind-the-scenes story that stands out involves the extensive fight choreography. Snipes and Yen worked closely with stunt coordinators to push the boundaries of what could be achieved practically, minimizing CGI to preserve realism. This hands-on approach demanded stamina and precision, and the actors' mutual dedication fostered a sense of shared mission. The grueling training and rehearsals not only prepared them physically, but also created an unspoken bond that viewers can sense in their synchronized, high-octane battles. Another fascinating production detail relates to the prosthetics and creature effects used for the Reapers. Actors often had to perform alongside complex animatronics or green screens, requiring a blend of imagination and technical skill. The cast frequently praised the practical effects team for creating tangible monsters, which helped them react authentically during intense scenes. This intersection of technology and performance enriched the film's realism and underscored the collaborative nature of bringing such a supernatural world to life. When Blade 2 was released on March 22, 2002, audience reactions reflected an appreciation for its fresh take on the vampire genre and its bold visual style. Fans praised the film for its intense action sequences, atmospheric world-building, and compelling characters. Many appreciated how the movie deepened Blade's story while expanding the mythology, making it more than just a standard superhero flick. The chemistry between the cast was often cited in reviews as a key strength that elevated the film above typical genre fare. Critically, Blade 2 received mostly positive feedback, with many reviewers highlighting Del Toro's distinct directorial vision and the cast's performances. While some critics noted that the film's dense mythology and fast pace could be overwhelming, the majority agreed that its unique blend of horror, action, and dark humor made it stand out in early 2000 cinema. The film also benefited from Snipes' star power and martial arts prowess, which drew both fans of superhero films and martial arts enthusiasts. Over the years, Blade 2 has maintained a dedicated fanbase, many of whom celebrate the film as a cult classic. Its influence is evident in how it helped pave the way for more complex, genre-blending superhero films that followed. Fans often discuss the palpable chemistry between Snipes, Perlman, and Varela, crediting their performances with bringing emotional depth to what could have been a straightforward action movie. The film's soundtrack, especially its fusion of electronic and industrial sounds, also enjoys enduring popularity, further cementing its cultural footprint. Fan engagement has been amplified by conventions, retrospectives, and online communities, where viewers dissect performances, share behind-the-scenes anecdotes, and celebrate the film's unique style. The continuing interest speaks to the lasting impact of the cast's chemistry and the collaborative spirit that shaped the film's production. The genuine connections forged on set continue to resonate through these interactions, allowing the film's energy to live on well beyond its theatrical run. In conclusion, Blade 2 stands out not just for its thrilling story and stylish visuals, but for the vibrant chemistry among its cast and the dynamic atmosphere behind the scenes. The trust and collaboration among actors, coupled with Del Toro's supportive direction, resulted in performances that feel lived in and emotionally resonant. The film's enduring popularity owes much to this synergy, which transformed a vampire action sequel into a richly textured experience that continues to captivate audiences today. When looking back at Blade 2, it's clear that this film did more than just entertain. It reshaped the landscape of superhero and vampire cinema in ways that continue to resonate today. Emerging in the early 2000s, a time when comic book adaptations were still finding their footing, Blade 2 carved a bold path by blending horror, martial arts, and sleek urban fantasy with a distinct visual style and narrative ambition. Its influence is woven through the DNA of countless films that followed, proving that it was more than a genre movie. It was a cultural touchstone. The film's impact on the vampire genre, in particular, cannot be overstated. Before Blade 2, vampires often carried a gothic or romanticized aura. Here, they were reimagined as fierce, primal creatures, especially with the introduction of the Reapers, whose monstrous design set new standards for on-screen supernatural villains. This gritty, visceral portrayal pushed vampire narratives into darker, more action-oriented territory, inspiring subsequent works that embraced horror's brutal edge without sacrificing character depth. The Reapers themselves became iconic, influencing creature design and effects in later films and TV series, where the balance of horror and physicality became a template. Beyond the vampire mythos, Blade 2 played a pivotal role in advancing the superhero genre. Wesley Snipes' portrayal of Blade was a landmark in bringing a complex, morally ambiguous black superhero to mainstream cinema, a rarity at the time. This representation resonated deeply with audiences craving diversity and depth in their heroes. The film's blend of hyper-stylized action, complex world-building, and mature themes helped lay the groundwork for the darker, more sophisticated superhero narratives that dominate today's box office. In this way, Blade 2 was ahead of its time, foreshadowing the narrative richness and visual flair that define modern comic book films. The directorial hand of Guillermo del Toro is integral to the movie's enduring significance. His distinct vision elevated Blade 2 beyond a typical sequel into a richly textured cinematic experience. Del Toro's passion for genre storytelling, combined with his meticulous attention to design and atmosphere, gave the film a unique identity that stands apart from its contemporaries. This influence rippled through the industry, encouraging filmmakers to pursue bold, auteur-driven genre films that balance style with substance. The success of Blade 2 showed that audiences were ready for movies that challenge genre conventions and offer more than just spectacle. In terms of filmmaking techniques, Blade 2 demonstrated how practical effects, innovative creature design, and intense fight choreography could coexist seamlessly with emerging digital technologies. Its commitment to practical effects for the Reapers and stunt work inspired a renewed appreciation for tangible craftsmanship in a digital age. This hybrid approach influenced many productions that sought to blend realism with fantasy, underscoring the importance of grounding even the most fantastical elements in physicality to maintain emotional engagement. The film's soundtrack also left a cultural mark, blending electronic, industrial, and hip-hop elements to create a soundscape that became emblematic of early 2000s urban cinema. This fusion not only amplified the movie's edgy tone but also influenced the music choices in later genre films, where soundtracks became essential to establishing atmosphere and identity. Blade 2 showed how music could be an integral narrative tool, setting mood and pace as effectively as visuals or dialogue. Although Blade 2 did not sweep major award ceremonies, it garnered recognition within genre-specific circles, celebrated for its technical achievements and design innovation. The film's effects teams and stunt coordinators earned praise for pushing the boundaries of what could be achieved within a mid-budget studio movie. These accolades, while perhaps modest, reflected the industry's growing respect for the film's craft and its role in expanding the possibilities of action horror filmmaking. Beyond industry acknowledgement, Blade 2's lasting power is evident in its dedicated fan base, and its influence across media. The film helped solidify Blade as a pop culture icon, inspiring comics, animated series, and video games that expanded his universe. Its cult following remains active decades later, with fans organizing screenings, discussions, and tributes that celebrate the film's style and substance. This ongoing engagement speaks to the emotional connection forged by the film's characters, themes, and visual storytelling. Importantly, Blade 2 also contributed to shifting conversations around representation in genre cinema. By centering a black superhero in a serious, high-stakes narrative, imbued with complexity and agency, it challenged Hollywood's norms and opened doors for more inclusive storytelling. This legacy paved the way for future successes and broadened the scope of who could be a hero on screen. The film's influence in this area remains a key part of its cultural significance, inspiring a generation of filmmakers and audiences alike. In reflecting on why Blade 2 endures, it's clear that its legacy lies in its fearless blending of genre, its stylish yet substantive storytelling, and its commitment to pushing creative boundaries. It wasn't content to be just another sequel or a simple vampire flick. It strove to expand its universe, deepen its characters, and dazzle with its visual and sonic palette. This ambition, combined with memorable performances and innovative filmmaking, crafted a movie that feels as fresh and exciting today as it did over 2 decades ago. Ultimately, Blade 2 stands as a testament to the power of visionary filmmaking that embraces complexity, diversity, and artistic daring. Its impact ripples through genre cinema, pop culture, and the evolving landscape of superhero storytelling, ensuring it remains not just a movie of its time but a lasting cultural milestone. For fans and newcomers alike, revisiting Blade 2 is an invitation to experience a film that changed the game and continues to inspire with its bold, uncompromising spirit. Looking back on Blade 2, it's impossible to overlook the many elements that make this film a standout in the world of genre cinema. From its audacious blend of horror, action, and dark fantasy to its intricate world-building, Blade 2 refuses to be pigeonholed as just another superhero sequel. The film's pulse beats strongest through its bold visual style, masterful choreography, and the magnetic presence of its cast, each component intertwining to create an experience that is both thrilling and emotionally resonant. Wesley Snipes' portrayal of Blade is more than a heroic figure. He is a complex character grappling with his identity, loyalty, and the heavy burden of his mission. This depth of character, paired with Guillermo del Toro's visionary direction, lifts the film beyond genre conventions. Del Toro's skillful weaving of gothic horror elements with sleek, modern aesthetics crafts a world that feels simultaneously fantastical and grounded, inviting audiences to lose themselves in its shadowy depths. The Reapers, as terrifying antagonists, bring a fresh and visceral energy that challenges both the characters and the audience, raising the stakes and delivering some of the most memorable creature designs in vampire cinema. The supporting cast adds layers of complexity and humanity, their performances breathing life into a narrative rich with tension, alliances, and betrayals. The chemistry between actors crackles with authenticity, whether in moments of conflict or camaraderie, underscoring the film's emotional core. Behind the scenes, this chemistry was nurtured by a collaborative environment that encouraged improvisation and mutual respect, allowing each performer to fully inhabit their role and contribute to the story's texture. Blade 2's technical achievements also deserve applause. The film's use of practical effects combined with cutting-edge visual techniques created a tactile, immersive world that heightens the horror and excitement. Its soundtrack pulses with energy, amplifying every fight scene and heightening the emotional beats, perfectly complementing the visual storytelling. These creative choices illustrate a commitment to craftsmanship that elevates the film from mere entertainment to a work of cinematic art. What makes Blade 2 truly remarkable, however, is its lasting impact. It helped redefine how superhero and vampire stories could be told, paving the way for more diverse and complex narratives in mainstream cinema. Its cultural resonance continues to be felt, influencing filmmakers and inspiring audiences around the globe. The film's ability to maintain a devoted fanbase decades after its release speaks volumes about its enduring power and significance. At its heart, Blade 2 is a story about transformation of characters of genres and of cinema itself. It challenges expectations, pushes boundaries, and delivers a narrative that is as emotionally compelling as it is visually spectacular. This combination ensures that the film remains a vital, thrilling experience for anyone who encounters it. If you love this breakdown, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of cinema. Let's keep exploring movies together.